Hi friends, strangers, internet. My name is Emily Hanhan. I love colorful makeup and colorful language. And today I am here to do a Skeptic's first impression of the Tati Beauty Blendiful. First of all, thank you to Leslie who purchased this and had it sent my way. Yeah, beyond belief, y'all are more supportive than I would have ever imagined. I had no intention of picking this up. As I said it in the title and just now, I am a bit of a skeptic about it. I am a bit of a skeptic about the entire Tati Beauty range, but I have them and I want to give them a try. And very first impression from feeling both of these, they are very, very soft. So we're actually going to be doing a kind of split face application. On my right side of my face, which is my right hand, so I think it's going to be the most beneficial for a first time using these puffs. I'm going to use this for everything, foundation, concealer, powder, blush, bronzer, and highlight. And then on this side of my face, I'm going to use my normal tools, which are my Shop Miss A Pawpaw sponge and brushes from Refer, and also a Shop Miss A brush. I haven't watched any of Tati's videos about the Blendiful, but I have watched reviews from Seeking Alexandria. I know Teresa has mentioned it. I've watched a couple of reviews about it. So I have some preconceived thoughts about what I might like and dislike about the product. It's still a whole new world for me working with these kinds of puffs, so I'm gonna try to be as neutral as a skeptic can be as we go. In my first ever live chat, I think I joked about doing a comparison, applying my makeup with a makeup eraser because they do feel similar. But I actually was watching Paige, Seeking Alexandria's follow-up to her initial Blendiful review. She actually tested that out, and it was just obvious that, like, it's not, they're similar, but they're not the same. I'm not gonna make a fool of myself. I'm just gonna do my favorite tools compared to the Blendiful. I'm pretty nervous to go in with a dry tool and foundation, but let's get going. Actually, picked some up because I didn't put enough on. This is the CoverGirl Matte BB Cream, and I did just apply it directly to the sponge. It's not the most ergonomic shape. That's half the face with this. Okay, it's fine. I realize that's my go-to thing when I am not impressed or unimpressed. It's fine. I realized that quite quickly in the neglected products video when I was editing that. I was like, oh bitch, stop saying it's fine. I don't think that's quite the same amount, so we'll start there. The Blendiful side has more coverage, so I'm gonna layer it up, and that was a lot more. My bad. Because as expected, the sponge does absorb product. As expected, the sponge absorbed some of the product where it seemed like the Blendiful did not. It did get kind of matted into the fabric, the fur, but I don't feel like it took that much of the BB cream compared to the sponge. Now my go-to concealer lately has been the Milani Conceal and Perfect. Now, let's go in with this. Do I want to fold it? I'm gonna try it this way. Okay, Blendiful. Except for the fact that it just transferred some furry bits onto my face. So while I'm doing this concealer, I'll talk about the Blendiful first impressions for the under eye. So I feel like that just blended out my concealer like my sponge would without picking up the product. So this sat underneath my eye for longer than this one, and yet they blended out with an equal amount of coverage, in my opinion. I wasn't expecting that kind of coverage and blend out. And for the concealer, it really did not pick hardly any of it up onto the fibers. The next big test is powder. I switched the side so I can use this corner to go underneath this eye. I think this is what you do. You're like, I saw, again, Paige do this. I don't know if I did that right. Knocking the powder kind of into the puff and also knocking some excess off. Okay. Because I'm not really baking my under eyes, I don't know if I'm going to like see the biggest difference, but it applied nicely, that's for sure. This is my favorite Refer brush for powder, well, especially for under the eye. And it's just large enough that I feel like I can use it all over my face, and I don't feel that I'm annoyed by how many times it takes to get to a covered face. Okay, if I'm looking up close in the mirror, I do see more texture on this part on this side of my face than this one, and I think that's the way the powder was applied, because it looks more like the way powder kind of sits on top of skin. Whereas this one, I still have a little bit of that kind of cakey powder texture, but it's more subtle. Is that something anybody else would notice from further away? Probably not, but it's there, so I thought I would just mention it. Now, the part that I was really curious about were like the rest of my face. So I don't really use cream products that way. I don't have a cream bronzer or a cream blush or highlighter really that I could use. But I wanted to give it a try, seeing how it applies the powder products, since it did apply that powder so well. So I pulled out like my favorite products, the ones that I kind of know how they apply on my face. First, we have my Milani bronzer. I picked it up on like the length of the puff. I have this, I guess I can hold it like this. I have this idea that I could just like, well, I didn't really need to apply it to the whole length of the puff to do that. But that did blend out my bronzer really nicely. Did it almost blend it away to nothing? Maybe. I'm telling you, skeptic brain. I'm questioning myself. So the part of this whole process that makes me very skeptical, no matter how much I like it, is the wash wear. Because everything that I've seen, the little bits that I've seen, is that there's issues with it ripping. It's blending out so nicely that I have to keep layering it up because this bronzer is so soft. I'm very intrigued to try the puff with my butter bronzer, because I always go too hard with my butter bronzer and I feel like I have to step it back with like extra buffing powder. My Refer bronzer brush. So I've never been disappointed with this Refer brush, but I do think that that initial application is much darker, whereas I think this actually blends it out, whereas I feel like this kind of applies a major amount of product and then kind of blended the edges. So my next thing up is blush. I pulled out one of my go-tos and a formula that I adore, Soft Peach by Cover FX. And we'll go in with the least bronzery corner, which is over here. Okay. Well, y'all know I love my blush, so let's just dive in. Layering up some of the shimmery blush. It blends nicely. Using my Refer. This is one of the face brushes that's a little bit smaller. I think you can see with the brush, I dip back in. I really have to like dip back in, but I'm also a blush fiend. And it's a beautiful blend, but I did have to dip back in more than one time. Whereas with the Blendiful, I just went in once with the matte and then once with the shimmer. The only thing, now that I'm looking at the brush side comparatively, so this part of my cheek I feel like was a really nice blend with the brush. Okay, that's a little bit better. I'm probably just being nitpicky now, but I feel like it blended the blush into the bronzer really nicely, but I do have to pay attention to this like line here. So I think the last thing I want to try is highlighter. I pulled out my Fave Horse and Carriage. Actually, I'm folding up into a quarter. I'm gonna pick this up on just that one spot because I don't want to infiltrate the whole puff with highlighter. And we're gonna go in on the tops of the cheekbones. Dipping in again because I think this time I actually went too subtle. That's interesting. So I can't tell, but there is a spot right in the middle of the sponge where I had picked up the highlighter. And I feel like the way I applied it, I may have just rubbed off more of my powder and face product than I meant to, but learning curves. And now my favorite Shop Missy brush. Huh. I'm having thoughts and feelings. So the last thing I want to try this with is the Hourglass Ambient Powder. I usually use this in more of a buffing motion, meaning a bigger fluffy brush all over the face. I don't know if I even need that on this side, to be completely honest, but I might just apply this like in the center of my face. We're just gonna try. I picked up a lot of product. Whoopsie daisy. And then I use my big fluffy rougher brush if I'm doing it with a brush. So that's the finished face. Here's my thoughts. The things that make a plus can also make a minus. So in my opinion, the Blendiful is gorgeous and stunning with blush and bronzer. For me, with highlighter, it blends it out. It softens it a little bit too much. With powder, it's really nice. I don't think I can do I don't think this is going to be what I would use to do something like the Hourglass ambient lighting, like a finishing powder, because it almost feels like too... how can I say this? I like the motion of dusting it all over my face more than I like the motion of using a puff to pat it on, because I don't actually want the Hourglass powder to be applied in that way. I kind of just want a little bit of a softer touch for it. But for regular face powder, I do really like this. For concealer, I like this. Yeah. I'm not a big foundation or base wearer on the regular, but I do want to keep trying this with different bases and see what I think. The only thing is that I feel like the construction is really lacking. I feel like I'm going to have issues once I machine wash this, just from everything that I've heard about. And the fact that even earlier, some of the little gray, it wasn't even full fuzzies, it's like the gray, the seaming, like little balls kind of transferred onto my under eye concealer. That wasn't the best thing. This is a much firmer spongy, but it is a nice size and shape, so I might use this in a future video. I've also heard this is great for touch-ups. If you're more oily, I was hearing Paige talk about she will use this without any powder just to blot off oil. We'll see what I do with this. I'd like to find a use within my regular routine and not just as a touch-up to use this. I think I'm going to end it there. I hope that was helpful. My general thought is that I think that this could be a really good tool. I'm questioning the longevity of it, and that's basically it. Off my first impression, would I buy another $18 set of 2 Blendifuls if those left my life or I lost them or whatever? Probably not, but I do want to keep trying them to see how I think about it on a bigger picture, long-term thing. If you want to hear my thoughts on that down the road, like a follow-up, let me know. Or maybe I'll do like a follow-up video that features a couple of products. I have to figure it out. But if you specifically want to hear any follow-up thoughts about the Blendiful, let me know in the comments. Thank you again to Leslie for sending these my way. I'm so thankful for you. If you were watching this to get some insight, I hope you receive that. If you or anyone have questions, leave them in the comments. I think that's it. If you enjoyed this video, I would love for you to give it a thumbs up. If you want to follow along with my typically colorful shenanigans, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. If you're already subscribed, I so appreciate you. I appreciate my patrons and everyone that's been so wonderful and supportive in all the different ways lately. I would not be here without you all, and that is not an understatement. Thank you for spending some of your day with me. I hope to see you again real soon. Bye, friends.